here. Hitting buttons everywhere. Good lord. Okay, so today is day two of Around the World in 80 Days. So far, so good. I know it's yeah. I know I had to get. I was all shaved for gaming last night. Yeah. Once I was all done with the chainsaw, good lord, I needed to freshen up. All right. Yeah, interesting night last night. I thought there was going to be some big changes to Fortnite, but nothing really was different in it. I guess the actual real changes happen on Wednesday. I guess there's some other stuff they need to figure out first. So, yeah, anyway, so, but you're here for the book. So, yeah, yesterday we had Phileas Fogg, who has spent his entire life being a bit of a regular, like clockwork recluse, and spending his time between either being at home or at his local club, independently wealthy, no one knows how, because he just minds his own business. Everything is done by the clock. For some bizarre reason, on the very first day that he hires like a brand new valet, Mr. Passepartout, he decides to go on a big trip around the world within 80 days because it's kind of like a bet that he got on with some of his club members. They were like, "You can't do that," and he's like, "Oh, sure I can. In fact, tell you what, I'm going to bet £20,000, I think it was." Anyway, so like he bet half his fortune on the actual bet, and the other half of his fortune he's going to spend to make it happen. So if he loses, he's out of everything. So but at the same time, someone has just robbed an incredible amount of money from the Bank of England. And Detective Fix is on the case and is pretty sure that is why Phileas Fogg is suddenly broken from habit and is now on the move, trying to get around the world as best he can to shake off the police. That's the plan. So he's actually he's tailing them and making friends with Passepartout, who's giving all kinds of info to him. You don't like the ninja wig? What do you mean you don't like that? Everyone likes ninja. Yeah, everyone likes that. Alrighty, let's see. Let me just scroll back up. Did I miss something? Oh, I probably did. Salisbury steak for lunch. All right. Okay. Nice. Okay, you like the book cover? Excuse me. Very good. Very good. Let's see. Where are we? Okay. You don't like... Well, luckily for you, I don't play Fortnite that often. That's really the only time I ever put it on. So it's just a goofy thing. But that's a good thing. I don't know. Actually, I can't say what's coming up next for something like that. It'll be fun though. Okay, so we're all up to speed on where we are, right? I think we're. Oh yeah, and so Phileas Fogg has to go into the embassies of every big continent or big city that he comes through to have his visa stamped, even though he's still within the British Empire right now. And they're like, "Yo, you don't need it stamped because you're still within the British Empire." Because at the time, they still had complete control over India. I think they just passed through India, but he's like, "No, I'm going to be able to prove it to the members of the club there that I've been passing through these countries. That's why I'm getting it all stamped." Good morning, level 1. Good morning, sir. Good morning. Yeah, that's a pretty vicious-looking character you got there in the Elder Scrolls there. Pretty vicious-looking dude. Is he like a half-orc or something like that? I don't know. I forget what classes they have in Elder Scrolls. You're finally heading to bed. You've been up way late. Way late. Okay, you go get some Z's, man. Go get some Z's. Enjoy the rest. Wake up refreshed. And start your day off fine, man. Yeah. Gotta get that rest. Gotta get that rest. Gotta take care of that body. All right. Let's see. Where am I at? Was there anything else we were supposed to? I think we're good. Oh, I was going to say yes. Thank you in advance for any hosts that get thrown down, because once we get going in our book, I'll just catch up with chat periodically. And oh, you were up at 6. Shadow was up at 6 a.m. buzzing your hair off. I need to do something like that to get my hair under control too. Yeah, because I'm not down to go down to the to the local hairdresser places yet, not yet. So and there's not much call for on-camera stuff right now, so I really don't need to either. So I don't know. Yeah, but I do need to take a pair of those buzz things there and a comb and get it a little under control. You're a night owl? Yeah. That's that can be fun. That can be fun. Okay. 1 second. I've got the wrong windows open here. Just pop that out. Move that over. I lost my train of thought. Saying thank you in advance for any hosts that get thrown down, because they help me out a lot. Thank you in advance if you like this show so much that you mention it in a Twitter or Facebook post. Those would both be very, very useful. By the way, I'm thinking about, actually, I have made a TikTok account. And I have an Instagram account too. And I was thinking of something clever to do on it. Now, apparently on Instagram, you can't upload anything from your PC, because I was thinking about like doing like little. Okay, you know those book quotes which we have. I have like about 400. I typed about 450 of them into the database, and every twice an hour. I think like some quote comes up about books. I was thinking about recording those just all individually, and so there'd be like 450 odd little pieces of stuff, and then like each day I could just like upload like a brand new one or something like that. And it seems much more feasible to do that on Instagram than on TikTok, because TikTok seems to be like someone does something funny, and then every other person on TikTok does their lip sync version of what they think it is, if they think they can do it better. So I don't know. If there's a book that you want to read but it hasn't been written yet, you must be the one to write it. Yes, very good. Very okay. That's a nice one. That's a nice one. I like that one. Toni Morrison died just a couple of months ago, I believe. Yeah. Very good. Oh, by the way, I had someone. Anyway, actually, we got to get on with this. It's like almost 1:15. But I just wanted to mention the Instagram, TikTok thing. So I don't know. Do you think that? I mean, that seems, because it's such short form content, it seems kind of good for that kind of platform. Especially just like the book quotes. It literally just be, because like there seem to be like a lot of like 15-second or like 30-second like little video clips there. And you don't have to, especially on TikTok, you don't have to have some music thing going on in the background. You can set your own thing to it. So I don't know. I was thinking about that. That could be fun. It could be fun. So, but if anyone else has some great ideas for like a voice or story or quote kind of material that could be like, or just even like a good idea for Instagram or TikTok. Just trying to wrap my head around that one. Yeah. Also, I wanted to mention clips are rolling out to everyone right now. If you, partners have them right here, right now on Mixer. However, if you are not a partner, you can now apply to get them. You just use the contact Mixer form, like you normally do if you have like a problem, contact Mixer, and there's actually a drop-down line item now, which is like request clips. So and it should be rolling out to everyone sometime in the next couple of months. But right now, you can get it for your channel if you're a streamer on Mixer if you request it. It takes them a couple of days to get you set up for it, apparently. But once you got them, you're good to go. Now, that said, feel free to use the clips function here. There's two ways to do it. One is the mix play button there. See with the movie camera. That is triggered through Mix It Up, which in theory is supposed to save a copy onto my hard drive as well, but that's not working right now. But it does do the clip. And the other way is just exclamation clip. Or there's also the little clip button on the actual video window itself, just to the right of the volume slider. And you can create clip there, and then you're going to do extra things in there, like trim it to the length that you want, and all that. So I'm just mentioning this because not a lot of people use the clips, mainly because it's just been so inaccessible for the vast majority of people. Anyway, so that's kind of changing. That's changing. So I hope you will take advantage of that, especially. Well, I mean, there's probably some decent book reading stuff. But I guess mainly for the gaming, I guess. But we should get on with it. Jules, oh, you know, it helps if I open up my Kindle. Good Lord. Okay, let's open it. Just takes a minute for it to load. Oh. Okay, we should have started reading 3 minutes ago. Unlike Phileas Fogg, my fastidiousness with time is not as precise as his. All right. Okay, just waiting for my Kindle to open, and then we can get on with it. I like all the I like all the good stuff there. Actually, what's on the front page of Mixer today? We're just going to take a look. Oh, I saw someone else playing West of Dead. I think it was like some game showcase that was being featured. Man, this Kindle is, doesn't have that big of a library in it. Maybe it does, I don't know. Yeah, I don't like that new category they have on the front page of Mixer. Hey, Godly Guardian, how you doing? Thank you for that host there, that's very kind of you. What's up? What is up? Looking like a cool fox, I dig it. Wow, coming down with a big old mass bombs. Do I need to start this thing again? Come on, Kindle. Ooh, I got 14,000 Microsoft reward points. Yeah. Godly Guardian's doing well. Very cool, very cool. We're just about to get started with part 2 of... Oh, you know what? I need to change my title on that other thing, too. And that... This thing here, Poor Old Bill is what we ended with yesterday. Around the World in 80 Days by Jules Verne. Oh boy, okay. I was not ready to go. Okay, we're ready to go now. Boop, there we go, that's what we're reading. Okay, this is day 2, we're 20% in. Okay, so we're just going to back up a... Okay, yeah, so he's been playing whist, basically. Passepartout is hanging out every day with Detective Fix, who thinks Phileas Fogg is the international thief. And they've just arrived at Bombay. Okay, yeah, so Phileas Fogg. Let's just switch our scenes. Here we go. Let's do it. Phileas Fogg was in the act of finishing the 33rd rubber of the voyage, and his partner and himself having, by a bold stroke, captured all 13 of the tricks, concluded this fine campaign with a brilliant victory. The Mongolia was due at Bombay on the 22nd. She arrived on the 20th. This was a gain to Phileas Fogg of 2 days since his departure from London, and he calmly entered the fact in the itinerary, in the column of gains. Chapter 10. Alrighty. We're ready? We're ready for this? I'm ready. In which Passepartout is only too glad to get off with the loss of his shoes. Everybody knows that the great reversed triangle of land, with its base in the north and its apex in the south, which is called India, embraces 1,400,000 square miles, upon which is spread unequally a population of 180 millions of souls. The British Crown exercises a real and despotic dominion over the larger portion of this vast country, and has a Governor-General stationed at Calcutta, governors at Madras, Bombay, and in Bengal, and a Lieutenant Governor at Agra. Midnight Rider throwing some embers down. Thank you, Midnight Rider. That's very kind. How you doing? Good morning. But British India, properly so called, only embraces 700,000 square miles and a population from 100 to 110 millions of inhabitants. A considerable portion of India is still free from British authority, and there are certain ferocious Rajas in the interior who are absolutely independent. Should be Rajas, I guess. The celebrated East India Company was all-powerful from 1756, when the English first gained a foothold on the spot where now stands the city of Madras, down to the time of the Great Sepoy insurrection. It gradually annexed province after province, purchasing them of the native chiefs, whom it seldom paid, and appointed the Governor-General and his subordinates, civil and military. But the East India Company has now passed away, leaving the British possessions in India directly under the control of the Crown. The aspect of the country, as well as the manners and distinctions of race, is daily changing. You're doing great there? That's good to hear. How's Agaya Weza? I think I got that name right. Formerly, one was obliged to travel in India by the old cumbrous methods of going on foot or on horseback, in palanquins or unwieldy coaches. Now fast steamboats ply on the Indus and the Ganges, and a great railway, with branch lines joining the main line at many points on its route, traverses the peninsula from Bombay to Calcutta in 3 days. This railway does not run in a direct line across India. The distance between Bombay and Calcutta, as the bird flies, is only from 1,000 to 1,100 miles, but the deflections of the road increase the distance by more than a third. The general route of the Great Indian Peninsular Railway is as follows. Leaving Bombay, it passes through Salsette, crossing to the continent opposite Tana, goes over the chain of the Western Ghauts, runs thence northeast as far as Burrampur, skirts the nearly independent territory of Bundelkund, ascends to Allahabad, turns thence eastwardly, meeting the Ganges at Benares, then departs from the river a little, and descending southeastward by Burdevan and the French town of Chandernagor, it has its terminus at Calcutta. She's doing well? That's good to hear. The passengers of the Mongolia went ashore at 4:30 p.m. At exactly 8 the train would start for Calcutta. Mr. Fogg, after bidding good-bye to his whist partners, left the steamer, gave his servant several errands to do, urged it upon him to be at the station promptly at 8, and with his regular step, which beat to the second, like an astronomical clock, directed his steps to the passport office. As for the wonders of Bombay, its famous city hall, its splendid library, its forts and docks, its bazaars, mosques, synagogues, its Armenian churches, and the noble pagoda on Malabar Hill, with its 2 polygonal towers, he cared not a straw to see them. He would not deign to examine even the masterpieces of Elephanta or the mysterious Hypageia, concealed southeast from the docks, or those fine remains of Buddhist architecture, the Carnarian grottos of the island of Salsette. Having transacted his business at the passport office, Phileas Fogg repaired quietly to the railway room, where he ordered dinner. Among the dishes served up to him, the landlord especially recommended a certain giblet of native rabbit, on which he prided himself. "Good morning, Lady Death. It's good to see you. Good morning." Mr. Fogg accordingly tasted the dish, but despite its spiced sauce, found it far from palatable. He rang for the landlord, and on his appearance said, fixing his clear eyes upon him, "Is this rabbit, sir?" "Oh, yes, my lord," the rogue boldly replied. Why does he sound Irish? I don't know. "Rabbit from the jungles." "And this rabbit did not mew when he was killed?" "Mew, my lord? What a rabbit mew! I swear to you." Be so good, landlord, as not to swear, but remember this. Cats were formerly considered in India as sacred animals. That was a good time. For the cats, my lord. Perhaps for the travellers as well. After which Mr. Fogg quietly continued his dinner. Fix had gone on shore shortly after Mr. Fogg, and his first destination was the headquarters of the Bombay police. He made himself known as a London detective, told his business at Bombay, and the position of affairs relative to the supposed robber, and nervously asked if a warrant had arrived from London. It had not reached the office. Indeed, there had not yet been time for it to arrive. Fix was sorely disappointed and tried to obtain an order of arrest from the director of the Bombay police. This the director refused, as the matter concerned the London office, which alone could legally deliver the warrant. Fix did not insist, and was fain to resign himself to await the arrival of the important document, but he was determined not to lose sight of the mysterious rogue as long as he stayed in Bombay. We see you, Kate. He did not doubt for a moment, any more than Passepartout, that Phileas Fogg would remain there, at least until it was time for the warrant to arrive. Passepartout, however, had no sooner heard his master's orders on leaving the Mongolia than he saw at once that they were to leave Bombay as they had done Suez and Paris, and that the journey would be extended at least as far as Calcutta, and perhaps beyond that place. He began to ask himself if this bet that Mr. Fogg talked about was not really in good earnest, and whether his fate was not in truth forcing him, despite his love of repose, around the world in 80 days. Having purchased the usual quota of shirts and shoes, he took a leisurely promenade about the streets, where crowds of people of many nationalities, Europeans, Persians with pointed caps, Banyas with round turbans, Sindhis with square bonnets, Parsis with black mitres, and long-robed Armenians were collected. It happened to be the day of a Parsi festival. These descendants of the sect of Zoroaster, the most thrifty, civilized, intelligent, and austere of the East Indians, among whom are counted the richest native merchants of Bombay, were celebrating a sort of religious carnival, with processions and shows, in the midst of which Indian dancing girls, clothed in rose-colored gauze, looped up with gold and silver, danced airily, but with perfect modesty, to the sound of viols and the clanging of tambourines. It is needless to say that Passepartout watched these curious ceremonies with staring eyes and gaping mouth, and that his countenance was that of the greenest booby imaginable. Not that kind of booby. Unhappily for his master, as well as himself, his curiosity drew him unconsciously farther off than he intended to go. Jackie Chan plays Passepartout. Okay. All right. Yeah, I wouldn't mind seeing that one. I'm a big fan of Jackie Chan, but I have not seen anything of his recently at all. Unhappily for his master, as well as himself, his curiosity drew him unconsciously farther off than he intended to go. At last, having seen the Parsi carnival wind away in the distance, he was turning his steps towards the station, when he happened to espy the splendid pagoda on Malabar Hill, and was seized with an irresistible desire to see its interior. He was quite ignorant that it is forbidden to Christians to enter certain Indian temples, and that even the faithful must not go in without first leaving their shoes outside the door. It may be said here that the wise policy of the British government severely punishes a disregard of the practices of the native religions. Passepartout, however, thinking no harm, went in like a simple tourist, and was soon lost in admiration of the splendid Brahmin ornamentation which everywhere met his eyes, when of a sudden he found himself sprawling on the sacred flagging. he looked up to behold 3 enraged priests, who forthwith fell upon him, tore off his shoes, and began to beat him with loud, savage exclamations. The agile Frenchman was soon upon his feet again, and lost no time in knocking down 2 of his long-gowned adversaries with his fists and a vigorous application of his toes. Then, rushing out of the pagoda as fast as his legs could carry him, he soon escaped the 3rd priest by mingling with the crowd in the streets. At 5 minutes before 8, Passepartout, hatless, shoeless, and having in the squabble lost his package of shirts and shoes, rushed breathlessly into the station. Fix, who had followed Mr. Fogg to the station and saw that he was really going to leave Bombay, was there, upon the platform. He had resolved to follow the supposed robber to Calcutta, and farther if necessary. Passepartout did not observe the detective, who stood in an obscure corner, but Fix heard him relate his adventures in a few words to Mr. Fogg. "I hope that this will not happen again," said Phileas Fogg coldly, as he got into the train. Poor Passepartout, quite crestfallen, followed his master without a word. Fix was on the point of entering another carriage when an idea struck him which induced him to alter his plan. "No, I'll stay. Oh, no, I'll stay," muttered he. "An offense has been committed on Indian soil. I've got my man." Just then the locomotive gave a sharp screech, and the train passed out into the darkness of the night. Yeah. You were rudely awoken by a weed whacker. Those things can be loud. Yeah, they can. And Mr. Galen's here. What's up? Sorry, I didn't see Mr. Galen sneak in earlier. How you doing, man? So it's nice to see the Galen here. Yeah, you're lurking and working. Very nice, very nice. Do that. Doing good. Doing good. Yeah, man. This book moves fast, real fast. Very good. We got some coffee. We got some good stories. We're good to go. Oh, I had an author, by the way, like an independent author, contact me via Twitter, wanting to know if I'd read their like little. It's a short story, but they're like self-publishing it up on Amazon there, which would be kind of cool. The only problem being it's all to do with an end-of-world plague that's going around. So I'm probably gonna pass on that. I had 2 projects which got cancelled because current events and all that. There it was just the wrong time to be doing that kind of stuff. Yeah, there we go. Very good. Okay, but I just thought that was kind of interesting. Anyway, I'll have to get back to them today. All right. Alrighty. Well, I mean, hopefully they were taking care of your lawn. At least your lawn's going to look good now, Lady Death. I hope so. Very good. Okay. Where are we at? You don't know. All right. Chapter 11. Oh boy, I'm half off screen. There we go. There we go. That's a little better. Oh, man, I need a haircut bad. All right. Chapter 11. In which Phileas Fogg secures a curious means of conveyance at a fabulous price. The train had started punctually. Among the passengers were a number of officers, government officials, and opium and indigo merchants, whose business called them to the eastern coast. Passepartout rode in the same carriage with his master, and a 3rd passenger occupied a seat opposite to them. This was Sir Francis Cromarty, one of Mr. Fogg's whist partners on the Mongolia, now on his way to join his corps at Benares. Sir Francis was a tall, fair man of 50, who had greatly distinguished himself in the last Sepoy revolt. He made India his home, only paying brief visits to England at rare intervals, and was almost as familiar as a native with the customs, history, and character of India and its people. But Phileas Fogg, who was not traveling, but only describing a circumference, took no pains to inquire into these subjects. He was a solid body, traversing an orbit around the terrestrial globe, according to the laws of rational mechanics. He was at this moment calculating in his mind the number of hours spent since his departure from London, and had it been in his nature to make a useless demonstration, would have rubbed his hands for satisfaction. Sir Francis Cromarty had observed the oddity of his travelling companion, although the only opportunity he had for studying him had been whilst he was dealing the cards and between two rubbers, and questioned himself whether a human heart really beat beneath this cold exterior, and whether Phileas Fogg had any sense of the beauties of nature. The Brigadier General was free to mentally confess that, of all the eccentric persons he had ever met, none was comparable to this product of the exact sciences. Phileas Fogg had not concealed from Sir Francis his design of going round the world, nor the circumstances under which he set out, and the General only saw in the wager a useless eccentricity and a lack of sound common sense. In the way this strange gentleman was going on, he would leave the world without having done any good to himself or anybody else. An hour after leaving Bombay, the train had passed the viaducts and the island of Salsette, and had got into the open country. At Kalyan, they reached the junction of the branch line which descends towards southeastern India by Kandala and Poona, and, passing Powell, they entered the defiles of the mountains, with their basalt bases and their summits crowned with thick and verdant forests. Phileas Fogg and Sir Francis Cromarty exchanged a few words from time to time, and now Sir Francis, reviving the conversation, observed, "Some years ago, Mr. Fogg, you would have met with a delay at this point, which would probably have lost you your wager." "Oh, how so, Sir Francis?" "Because the railway stopped at the base of these mountains, which the passengers were obliged to cross in palanquins or on ponies to Kandala, on the other side." "Such a delay would not have deranged my plans in the least," said Mr. Fogg. "I have constantly foreseen the likelihood of certain obstacles." "Oh, but Mr. Fogg," pursued Sir Francis, "you run the risk of having some difficulty about this worthy fellow's adventure on the pagoda." Passepartout, his feet comfortably wrapped in his travelling blanket, was sound asleep and did not dream that anybody was talking about him. "The government is very severe upon that kind of offence. It takes particular care that the religious customs of the Indians should be respected, and if your servant were caught—" "Very well, Sir Francis," replied Mr. Fogg. "If he had been caught, he would have been condemned and punished, and then would have quietly returned to Europe. I don't see how this affair could have delayed his master." The conversation fell again. During the night, the train left the mountains behind and passed Nasik, and the next day proceeded over the flat, well-cultivated country of the Khandaish, with its straggling villages, above which rose the minarets of the pagodas. This fertile territory is watered by numerous small rivers and limpid streams, mostly tributaries of the Godavari. Passepartout, on waking and looking out, could not realize that he was actually crossing India in a railway train. The locomotive, guided by an English engineer and fed with English coal, threw out its smoke upon cotton, coffee, nutmeg, clove, and pepper plantations, while the steam curled in spirals around groups of palm trees, in the midst of which were seen picturesque bungalows, viharis, a sort of abandoned monastery, and marvelous temples enriched by the exhaustless ornamentation of Indian architecture. Then they came upon vast tracts extending to the horizon, with jungles inhabited by snakes and tigers, which fled at the noise of the train, succeeded by forests penetrated by the railway, and still haunted by elephants, which, with pensive eyes, gazed at the train as it passed. The travellers crossed, beyond Millergaum, the fatal country so often stained with blood by the sectaries of the goddess Kali. Not far off rose Ellora, with its graceful pagodas, and the famous Aurangabad, capital of the ferocious Aurangzeb, now the chief town of one of the detached provinces of the Kingdom of the Nizam. Good morning, Tillable Cat. Hey, what's up? Good morning. It was thereabouts that Ferengia, the Tuggy chief, king of the Stranglers, held his sway. These ruffians, united by a secret bond, strangled victims of every age in honor of the goddess Death, without ever shedding blood. There was a period when this part of the country could scarcely be traveled over without corpses being found in every direction. The English government has succeeded in greatly diminishing these murders, though the Tuggies still exist and pursue the exercise of their horrible rites. At 12:30, the train stopped at Burrampur, where Passepartout was able to purchase some Indian slippers, ornamented with false pearls, in which, with evident vanity, he proceeded to encase his feet. The travellers made a hasty breakfast and started off for Assurgur, after skirting for a little the banks of the small river Tapti, which empties into the Gulf of Cambrai near Surat. Passepartout was now plunged into absorbing reverie. Up to his arrival at Bombay, he had entertained hopes that their journey would end there, but now that they were plainly whirling across India at full speed, a sudden change had come over the spirit of his dreams. His old vagabond nature returned to him. The fantastic ideas of his youth once more took possession of him. He came to regard his master's project as intended in good earnest, believed in the reality of the bet, and therefore in the tour of the world, and the necessity of making it without fail within the designated period. Already he began to worry about possible delays and accidents which might happen on the way. He recognized himself as being personally interested in the wager, and trembled at the thought that he might have been the means of losing it by his unpardonable folly of the night before. Being much less cool-headed than Mr. Fogg, he was much more restless, counting and recounting the days passed over, uttering maledictions when the train stopped, and accusing it of sluggishness, and mentally blaming Mr. Fogg for not having bribed the engineer. The worthy fellow was ignorant that, while it was possible by such means to hasten the rate of a steamer, it could not be done on the railway. Yeah. The train entered the defiles of the Satpur Mountains, which separate the Khandaish from Bundelkund towards evening. The next day, Sir Francis Cromarty asked Passepartout what time it was, to which, on consulting his watch, he replied that it was 3 a.m. This famous timepiece, always regulated on the Greenwich meridian, was now some 77 degrees westward. It was at least 4 hours slow. Sir Francis corrected Passepartout's time, whereupon the latter made the same remark that he had done to Fix, and upon the general insisting that the watch should be regulated in each new meridian, since he was constantly going eastward, that is, in the face of the sun, and therefore the days were shorter by 4 minutes for each degree gone over, Passepartout obstinately refused to alter his watch, which he kept at London time. It was an innocent delusion, which could harm no one. The train stopped at 8 o'clock in the midst of a glade some 15 miles beyond Rothal, where there were several bungalows and workmen's cabins. The conductor, passing along the carriages, shouted, "Passengers will get out here." Phileas Fogg looked at Sir Francis Cromarty for an explanation, but the general could not tell what meant a halt in the midst of this forest of dates and acacias. Passepartout, not less surprised, rushed out and speedily returned, crying, "Monsieur, no more railway." "Oh, what do you mean?" asked Sir Francis. "I mean to say that the train isn't a-going on." The general at once stepped out, while Phileas Fogg calmly followed him, and they proceeded together to the conductor. "Well, where are we?" asked Sir Francis. This will be the conductor, okay. "At the hamlet of Colby." "Do we stop here?" "Certainly. The railway isn't finished." "What? Not finished?" "No. There's still a matter of 50 miles to be laid from here to Allahabad, where the line begins again." But the papers announced the opening of the railway throughout." "What will you have, officer? The papers were mistaken." "Yet you sell tickets from Bombay to Calcutta," retorted Sir Francis, who was growing warm. "Oh, no doubt," replied the conductor. "But the passengers know that they must provide means of transportation for themselves from Colby to Allahabad." Sir Francis was furious. Passepartout would willingly have knocked the conductor down, and did not dare to look at his master. "Sir Francis," said Mr. Fogg quietly, "we will, if you please, look about for some means of conveyance to Allahabad." "Oh, Mr. Fogg, this is a delay greatly to your disadvantage." "No, Sir Francis. It was foreseen." "What? You knew that the way—" "Oh, no, not at all. But I knew that some obstacle or other would sooner or later arise on my route. Nothing, therefore, is lost. I have 2 days, which I have already gained, to sacrifice. A steamer leaves Calcutta for Hong Kong at noon on the 25th. This is the 22nd, and we shall reach Calcutta in time." There was nothing to say to so confident a response. It was but too true that the railway came to a termination at this point. The papers were like some watches, which have a way of getting too fast, and had been premature in their announcement of the completion of the line. The greater part of the travellers were aware of this interruption, and leaving the train they began to engage such vehicles as the village could provide. 4-wheeled, pulkagaris, wagons drawn by zebus. What's a zebu? A zebu is another term for a Brahmin. What? Well, what's a Brahmin? Let's just look it up real fast. Wiki Brahmin. Oh. Oh, you know, it's probably Brahmin cattle. Brahmin cattle. That must be it. Okay. Okay, it's okay. So it was it's okay, and then there's modern versions of it there. Okay, originating in India. All right. Okay, it's got to be okay. Brahmin cattle. All right. Boy, I gotta look stuff up at times. Good lord. Hey, King Danny. Good morning. How you doing, man? Day 2 of Around the World in 80 Days. Thank you for that host, Midnight Rider. Thank you for that. I do like those. Noble TV. How you doing, man? Oh boy, we were doing some Halo last night, man. It was good times, though we got soundly thrashed a bit. Tell you what, I don't know what it is about Big Team Battle, but there seems to be like full of tryhards right now. We got soundly beaten in that one. It was like such a huge difference between all the other social arena modes that was going on. They were bad. Big team is hard because clans will pop. I think that's what it must have been. And so it's like it was so different from the normal from the normal, you know, just bunch of randos coming in and getting some chaos on. There was like a total organized, coordinated route of it was bad news. All right, King Danny's doing okay. That's cool. Yeah, we're doing good here too. We're doing good. We're making pretty fast tracks through this book. Yeah. Alrighty. Okay, I'm waffling. Thank you, Shadowtronics. Okay, You got super busy last week. Sorry for missing the... It's okay. It's all good, man. Yeah, it was a lot of fun. It was a lot of fun. It was we did 3 rounds of we did 3 different maps. We did Slayer, then we did Oddball, then we did... It was all free for all. Slayer, Oddball, and then Slayer again, and just added up all the points for like the thing. It was good. It was good. Everyone got something. It was yeah. So they were like Game Pass codes and Xbox gift codes, and then if you weren't getting the top prizes, you got like a code for Mixer Pro and stuff like that. Yeah, it was good. People had a good time. Okay, and I hope you can make the next one. Yeah. Alrighty. Okay, but I need to get back to our book. And let's get back to it. This is the important stuff. Here we go. What? You knew that the way... not at all. But I knew that some obstacle or other would sooner or later arise on my route. Nothing, therefore, is lost. I have 2 days, which I have already gained, to sacrifice. A steamer leaves Calcutta for Hong Kong at noon on the 25th. This is the 22nd, and we shall reach Calcutta in time. There was nothing to say to so confident a response. It was but too true that the railway came to a termination at this point. The papers were like some watches, which have a way of getting too fast, and had been premature in their announcement of the completion of the line. The greater part of the travellers were aware of this interruption, and, leaving the train, they began to engage such vehicles as the village could provide, 4-wheeled palagaris, wagons drawn by zebu cattle, carriages that looked like perambulating pagodas, palanquins, ponies, and what-not. Mr. Fogg and Sir Francis Cromarty, after searching the village from end to end, came back without having found anything. "I shall go afoot," said Phileas Fogg. Passepartout, who had now rejoined his master, made a wry grimace as he thought of his magnificent but too frail Indian shoes. Happily, he too had been looking about him, and after a moment's hesitation said, "Monsieur, I think I have found a means of conveyance." "What?" "An elephant. An elephant that belongs to an Indian who lives but 100 steps from here." "Oh, let's go and see the elephant," said Mr. Fogg. They soon reached a small hut, near which, enclosed within some high palings, was the animal in question. An Indian came out of the hut, and at their request conducted them within the enclosure. The elephant, which its owner had reared, not for a beast of burden, but for warlike purposes, was half domesticated. The Indian had begun already, by often irritating him and feeding him every 3 months on sugar and butter, to impart to him a ferocity not in his nature, this method being often employed by those who train the Indian elephants for battle. Happily, however, for Mr. Fogg, the animal's instruction in this direction had not gone far, and the elephant still preserved his natural gentleness. Kiuni, this was the name of the beast, could doubtless travel rapidly for a long time, and in default of any other means of conveyance, Mr. Fogg resolved to hire him. But elephants are far from cheap in India, where they are becoming scarce. The males, which alone are suitable for circus shows, are much sought, especially as but few of them are domesticated. When, therefore, Mr. Fogg proposed to the Indian to hire Kiuni, he refused point-blank. Mr. Fogg persisted, offering the excessive sum of £10 an hour for the loan of the beast to Allahabad. Refused. £20? Refused also. £40? Still refused. Passepartout jumped at each advance, but the Indian declined to be tempted. Yet the offer was an alluring one, for suppose it took the elephant 15 hours to reach Allahabad, his owner would receive no less than £600 sterling. Phileas Fogg, without getting in the least flurried, then proposed to purchase the animal outright, and at first offered £1,000 for him. The Indian, perhaps thinking he was going to make a great bargain, still refused. Sir Francis Cromarty took Mr. Fogg aside and begged him to reflect before he went any further, to which that gentleman replied that he was not in the habit of acting rashly, that a bet of £20,000 was at stake, that the elephant was absolutely necessary to him, and that he would secure him if he had to pay 20 times his value. Returning to the Indian, whose small, sharp eyes, glistening with avarice, betrayed that with him it was only a question of how great a price he could obtain, Mr. Fogg offered first 1,200, then 1,500, 1,800, £2,000. The Passepartout, usually so rubicund, was fairly white with suspense. Rubicund, a ruddy complexion or high-colored. Okay. Usually so rubicund, was fairly white with suspense. Getting some new jeans and a t-shirt tomorrow? Nice. That's cool. Doing a little shopping. At £2,000, the Indian yielded. "What a price, good heavens!" cried Passepartout. "For an elephant." It only remained now to find a guide, which was comparatively easy. A young Parsee with an intelligent face offered his services, which Mr. Fogg accepted, promising so generous a reward as to materially stimulate his zeal. The elephant was led out and equipped. The Parsee, who was an accomplished elephant driver, covered his back with a sort of saddle-cloth, and attached to each of his flanks some curiously uncomfortable howdahs. What's a howdah? Howdah. Hoodah. A seat for riding on the back of an elephant or camel, typically with a canopy and accompanying 2 or more people. Okay, let's look up how to pronounce that. Pronounce. I think it's hoodah.
Howdah.
Howdah. No, it's howdah. All right, okay. That does sound suspiciously like a text-to-speech one, though, so. All right. I lost my page. There we go. The Parsee, who was an accomplished elephant driver, covered his back with a sort of saddle-cloth, and attached to each of his flanks some curiously uncomfortable howdahs. Excuse me. Phileas Fogg paid the Indian with some banknotes which he extracted from the famous carpet-bag, a proceeding that seemed to deprive poor Passepartout of his vitals. Then he offered to carry Sir Francis to Allahabad, which the brigadier gratefully accepted, as one traveller the more would not be likely to fatigue the gigantic beast. Provisions were purchased at Colby, and while Sir Francis and Mr. Fogg took the howdahs on either side, Passepartout got astride the saddle-cloth between them. The Parsee perched himself on the elephant's neck, and at 9 o'clock they set out from the village, the animal marching off through the dense forest of palms by the shortest cut. Well, at least he's not being sold into a circus. That's something there, Rose. Okay, let me catch up on chat. Very good. Okay. And at least they're not even worse than a circus. They're going for his ivory, and that's it. That's it. King Danny's going shopping. Nice, nice, nice. What's Cat Meow Meow? Where we at? Okay. I think I'm okay. I am all caught up. I am all caught up. There we go. In which Mr. Phileas Fogg. Mr. Phileas Fogg. Oh, can I? Let's see, let me just. Okay, I'm gonna have a little more coffee, then get on with it. Yeah, we're doing pretty good. 26%. Oh wow, it seems we seem to be going a little slower than yesterday. Made a full 20% yesterday, and right now, 45 an hour in, and we're only made another 6%. Too much waffle, says the Shadow Pops. Maybe that could be it. That might well be it. But it's nice to get caught up with chat. Yeah. Okay, let's get on with it. Blah, blah, blah. Where's my Kindle? There it is. Chapter 12, in which Phileas Fogg and his companions venture across the Indian forests, and what ensued. In order to shorten the journey, the guide passed to the left of the line where the railway was still in the process of being built. This line, owing to the capricious turnings of the Vindhya Mountains, did not pursue a straight course. The Parsee, who was quite familiar with the roads and paths in the district, declared that they would gain 20 miles by striking directly through the forest. Phileas Fogg and Sir Francis Cromarty, plunged to the neck in the peculiar howdahs provided for them, were horribly jostled by the swift trotting of the elephant, spurred on as he was by the skilful Parsee, but they endured the discomfort with true British phlegm, talking little and scarcely able to catch a glimpse of each other. As for Passepartout, who was mounted on the beast's back, and received the direct force of each concussion as he trod along, he was very careful, in accordance with his master's advice, to keep his tongue from between his teeth, as it would otherwise have been bitten off short. The worthy fellow bounced from the elephant's neck to his rump, and vaulted like a clown on a springboard. Yet he laughed in the midst of his bouncing, and from time to time took a piece of sugar out of his pocket and inserted it in Keawe's trunk, who received it without the least slackening of his regular trot. After 2 hours, the guide stopped the elephant and gave him an hour for rest, during which Keawe, after quenching his thirst at a neighboring spring, set to devouring the branches and shrubs round about him. Neither Sir Francis nor Mr. Fogg regretted the delay, and both descended with a feeling of relief. "Why, he's made of iron!" exclaimed the general, gazing admiringly on Keawe. "Of forged iron," replied Passepartout, as he set about preparing a hasty breakfast. At noon, the Parsee gave the signal of departure. The country soon presented a very savage aspect. Copses of dates and dwarf palms succeeded the dense forests. Then vast dry plains, dotted with scanty shrubs, and sown with great blocks of syenite. What's syenite? Syenite, a coarse-grained, gray, igneous rock composed mainly of alkali feldspar and... okay, right. Then vast dry plains, dotted with scanty shrubs and sown with great blocks of syenite. All this portion of Bundelkund, which is little frequented by travelers, is inhabited by a fanatical population, hardened in the most horrible practices of the Hindu faith. The English have not been able to secure complete dominion over this territory, which is subjected to the influences of Rajas, whom it is almost impossible to reach in their inaccessible mountain fastnesses. The travelers several times saw bands of ferocious Indians who, when they perceived the elephant striding across country, made angry and threatening motions. The Parsee avoided them as much as possible. Few animals were observed on the route. Even the monkeys hurried from their path with contortions and grimaces which convulsed Passepartout with laughter. In the midst of his gaiety, however, one thought troubled the worthy servant. What would Mr. Fogg do with the elephant when he got to Allahabad? Would he carry him on with him? Impossible. The cost of transporting him would make him ruinously expensive. Would he sell him or set him free? The estimable beast certainly deserved some consideration. Should Mr. Fogg choose to make him, Passepartout, a present of Keawe, he would be very much embarrassed, and these thoughts did not cease worrying him for a long time. Lady Death is lurking, that's fine. It could be. One second. Let's aim this down. The principal chain of the Vindias was crossed by 8 in the evening, and another halt was made on the northern slope, in a ruined bungalow. They had gone nearly 25 miles that day, and an equal distance still separated them from the station of Allahabad. The night was cold. The Parsi lit a fire in the bungalow with a few dry branches, and the warmth was very grateful. Provisions purchased at Colby sufficed for supper, and the travelers ate ravenously. The conversation, beginning with a few disconnected phrases, soon gave place to loud and steady snores. The guide watched Kiuni, who slept standing, bolstering himself against the trunk of a large tree. Nothing occurred during the night to disturb the slumberers, although occasional growls from panthers and chatterings of monkeys broke the silence. The more formidable beasts made no cries or hostile demonstration against the occupants of the bungalow. Sir Francis slept heavily, like an honest soldier, overcome with fatigue. Passepartout was wrapped in uneasy dreams of the bouncing of the day before. And as for Mr. Fogg, he slumbered as peacefully as if he had been in his serene mansion in Savile Row. The journey was resumed at 6 in the morning. The guide hoped to reach Allahabad by evening. In that case, Mr. Fogg would only lose a part of the 48 hours saved since the beginning of the tour. Kiuni, resuming his rapid gait, soon descended the lower spurs of the Vindias, and towards noon they passed by the village of Kalanger, on the Kani, one of the branches of the Ganges. The guide avoided inhabited places, thinking it safer to keep the open country, which lies along the first depressions of the basin of the great river. Allahabad was now only 12 miles to the northeast. They stopped under a clump of bananas, the fruit of which, as healthy as bread and as succulent as cream, was amply partaken of and appreciated. At 2 o'clock, the guide entered a thick forest which extended several miles. He preferred to travel under cover of the woods. They had not as yet had any unpleasant encounters, and the journey seemed on the point of being successfully completed, when the elephant, becoming restless, suddenly stopped. It was then 4 o'clock. "Oh, what's the matter?" asked Sir Francis, putting out his head. "I don't know, officer," replied the Parsi, listening attentively to a confused murmur which came through the thick branches. The murmur soon became more distinct. It now seemed like a distant concert of human voices, accompanied by brass instruments. Passepartout was all eyes and ears. Mr. Fogg patiently waited without a word. The Parsi jumped to the ground, fastened the elephant to a tree, and plunged into the thicket. He soon returned, saying, "A procession of Brahmins is coming this way. We must prevent their seeing us if possible." The guide unloosed the elephant and led him into a thicket, at the same time asking the travelers not to stir. He held himself ready to bestride the animal at a moment's notice, should flight become necessary, but he evidently thought that the procession of the faithful would pass without perceiving them amid the thick foliage, in which they were wholly concealed. The discordant tones of the voices and instruments drew nearer, and now droning songs mingled with the sound of the tambourines and cymbals. The head of the procession soon appeared beneath the trees, 100 paces away, and the strange figures who performed the religious ceremony were easily distinguished through the branches. First came the priests, with mitres on their heads, and clothed in long lace robes. They were surrounded by men, women, and children, who sang a kind of lugubrious psalm, interrupted at regular intervals by the tambourines and cymbals. Lugubrious. Sad and dismal. Interrupted at regular intervals by the tambourines and cymbals, while behind them was drawn a car with large wheels, the spokes of which represented serpents entwined with each other. Upon the car, which was drawn by 4 richly caparisoned zebus, caparison, an ornamental covering spread over a horse's saddle or harness. Okay, which was drawn by 4 richly caparisoned zebus, stood a hideous statue with 4 arms, the body colored a dull red, with haggard eyes, disheveled hair, protruding tongue, and lips tinted with beetle. The leaf of an Asian evergreen climbing plant that is used in the East as a mild stimulant. Alright. Causes saliva to go red, and with prolonged use, teeth to go black. It's related to pepper. And lips tinted with beetle. It stood upright upon the figure of a prostrate and headless giant. Sir Francis, recognizing the statue, whispered, "The goddess Kali, the goddess of love and death." "Of death, perhaps," muttered back Passepartout, "but of love, that ugly old hag, never." The Parsi made a motion to keep silence. A group of old fakers, how do you say, fakir or faker? Fakir. Let's do this one. Just looking it up real fast.
Faker.
It says faker, but I'm sure fakir.
pronouncenames.com.
Fakir.
Alright. Well, that's what it says. That's what it says. I don't believe it. Fakir. Okay, the Parsi made a motion to keep silence. A group of old fakirs were capering and making a wild ado round the statue. These were striped with ochre and covered with cuts whence their blood issued drop by drop. Stupid fanatics who in the great Indian ceremonies still throw themselves under the wheels of Juggernaut. Some Brahmins, clad in all this sumptuousness of oriental apparel, and leading a woman who faltered at every step, followed. This woman was young, and as fair as a European. Her head and neck, shoulders, ears, arms, hands, and toes were loaded down with jewels and gems, with bracelets, earrings, and rings, while a tunic bordered with gold and covered with a light muslin robe betrayed the outline of her form. The guards who followed the young woman presented a violent contrast to her, armed as they were with naked sabers hung at their waists, and long Damascened pistols, and bearing a corpse on a palanquin. It was the body of an old man, gorgeously arrayed in the habiliments of a Rajah, wearing, as in life, a turban embroidered with pearls, a robe of tissue of silk and gold, a scarf of cashmere sewed with diamonds, and the magnificent weapons of a Hindu prince. Next came the musicians and a rear guard of capering fakirs, whose cries sometimes drowned the noise of the instruments. These closed the procession. Sir Francis watched the procession with a sad countenance, and turning to the guide said, "A suttee." The Parsi nodded and put a finger to his lips. The procession slowly wound under the trees, and soon its last ranks disappeared in the depths of the wood. The songs gradually died away. Occasionally cries were heard in the distance, until at last all was silence again. Phileas Fogg had heard what Sir Francis said, and as soon as the procession had disappeared, asked, "What is a suttee?" "A suttee," returned the general, "is a human sacrifice, but a voluntary one. The woman you have just seen will be burned tomorrow at the dawn of day." Oh, the scoundrels!" cried Passepartout, who could not repress his indignation. "And the corpse?" asked Mr. Fogg. Is that of the prince, her husband?" said the guide, "an independent Rajah of Bundelkund." "Is it possible," resumed Phileas Fogg, his voice betraying not the least emotion, "that these barbarous customs still exist in India, and that the English have been unable to put a stop to them?" These sacrifices do not occur in the larger portion of India, replied Sir Francis. But we have no power over these savage territories, and especially here in Bundelkund. The whole district north of the Vindhyas is the theatre of incessant murders and pillage. Oh, the poor wretch, exclaimed Passepartout, to be burned alive. Yes, returned Sir Francis, burned alive, and if she were not, you cannot conceive what treatment she would be obliged to submit to from her relatives. They would shave off her hair, feed her on a scanty allowance of rice, treat her with contempt. She would be looked upon as an unclean creature, and would die in some corner like a scurvy dog. The prospect of so frightful an existence drives these poor creatures to the sacrifice much more than love or religious fanaticism. Sometimes, however, the sacrifice is really voluntary, and it requires the active interference of the government to prevent it. Several years ago, when I was living at Bombay, a young widow asked permission of the governor to be burned along with her husband's body, but as you imagine, he refused. The woman left the town, took refuge with an independent Rajah, and there carried out her self-devoted purpose. While Sir Francis was speaking, the guide shook his head several times, and now said, The sacrifice which will take place tomorrow at dawn is not a voluntary one. How do you know? Everybody knows about this affair in Bundelkund. But the wretched creature did not seem to be making any resistance, observed Sir Francis. And that was because they had intoxicated her with fumes of hemp and opium. But where are they taking her? To the pagoda of Pillaji, 2 miles from here. She will pass the night there. And the sacrifice will take place tomorrow, at the first light of dawn. The guide now led the elephant out of the thicket and leaped upon his neck. Just at the moment that he was about to urge Kiuni forward with a peculiar whistle, Mr. Fogg stopped him, and turning to Sir Francis Cromarty, said, Suppose we save this woman. Save the woman, Mr. Fogg. I have yet 12 hours to spare. I can devote them to that. Why, you are a man of heart. Sometimes, replied Phileas Fogg quietly, when I have the time. Alrighty. Wow, okay, now we're getting into some just straight-up adventure. Rose Morales, that hemp woke you up. Oh. Very good. There we go. Let us welcome controversial books and controversial authors, for the Bill of Rights is the guardian of our security, as well as our liberty, said Mr. John F. Kennedy. Alrighty. I like that quote. Did I miss anything in chat? Let's see, catching up. Lady Death is just lurking right now. That's fine. That's what we all do here. We all lurk a little. And that's A-OK. Okay, let's see. Slowly and surely, little by little, we are getting there. Boom, there we go. Kate's just hiding. Rose is drawing circles and listening. Nice. Wow, this tablet is not cooperating at all. There we go, that's more like it. Put that over there, okay. But let us continue. Yeah, we were getting there. Was it 11:20? All right, so now they're down to rescue some people. We're 30% of the way in. Maybe the first several pages of this were just like fluff pages to flip through. Don't know. Okay, now we got some high adventure coming up. High adventure. Chapter 13, in which Passepartout receives a new proof that fortune favors the brave. I was looking up, see how we're doing here in our big category, creative. Okay, let's do it. The project was a bold one, full of difficulty, perhaps impractical. Mr. Fogg was going to risk life, or at least liberty, and therefore the success of his tour. But he did not hesitate, and he found in Sir Francis Cromarty an enthusiastic ally. As for Passepartout, he was ready for anything that might be proposed. His master's idea charmed him. He perceived a heart, a soul, under that icy exterior. He began to love Phileas Fogg. There remained the guide. What course would he adopt? Would he not take part with the Indians? In default of his assistance, it was necessary to be assured of his neutrality. Sir Francis frankly put the question to him. "Officers," replied the guide, "I am a Parsee, and this woman is a Parsee. Command me as you will." "Excellent," said Mr. Fogg. "However," resumed the guide, "it is certain, not only that we shall risk our lives, but horrible tortures, if we are taken." "That is foreseen," replied Mr. Fogg. "I think we must wait till night before acting." "I think so," said the guide. The worthy Indian then gave some account of the victim, who he said was a celebrated beauty of the Parsee race, and the daughter of a wealthy Bombay merchant. She had received a thoroughly English education in that city, and from her manners and intelligence would be thought a European. Her name was Aouda. Left an orphan, she was married against her will to the old Rajah of Bundelkund, and knowing the fate that awaited her, she escaped, was retaken, and devoted by the Rajah's relatives, who had an interest in her death, to the sacrifice from which it seemed she could not escape. The Parsee's narrative only confirmed Mr. Fogg and his companions in their generous design. It was decided that the guide should direct the elephant towards the pagoda of Pelagi, which he accordingly approached as quickly as possible. They halted half an hour afterwards in a copse some 500 feet from the pagoda, where they were well concealed, but they could hear the groans and cries of the fakirs distinctly. They then discussed the means of getting at the victim. The guide was familiar with the pagoda of Pelagi, in which, as he declared, the young woman was imprisoned. Could they enter any of its doors while the whole party of Indians was plunged in a drunken sleep, or was it safer to attempt to make a hole in the wall? This could only be determined at the moment and the place themselves, but it was certain that the abduction must be made that night, and not when, at break of day, the victim was led to her funeral pyre. Then no human intervention could save her. As soon as night fell, about 6 o'clock, they decided to make a reconnaissance around the pagoda. The cries of the fakirs were just ceasing. The Indians were in the act of plunging themselves into the drunkenness caused by liquid opium mingled with hemp, and it might be possible to slip between them to the temple itself. The Parsee, leading the others, noiselessly crept through the wood, and in 10 minutes they found themselves on the banks of a small stream, whence, by the light of the rosin torches, they perceived a pyre of wood, on the top of which lay the embalmed body of the Rajah, which was to be burned with his wife. The pagoda, whose minarets loomed above the trees in the deepening dusk, stood 100 steps away. "Come," whispered the guide. He slipped more cautiously than ever through the brush, followed by his companions. The silence around was only broken by the low murmuring of the wind among the branches. Soon the Parsee stopped on the borders of the glade, which was lit up by the torches. The ground was covered by groups of the Indians, motionless in their drunken sleep. It seemed a battlefield strewn with the dead. Men, women, and children lay together. In the background, among the trees, the pagoda of Pelagi loomed distinctly. Much to the guide's disappointment, the guards of the Rajah, lighted by torches, were watching at the doors and marching to and fro with naked sabers. Probably the priests, too, were watching within. The Parsee, now convinced that it was impossible to force an entrance to the temple, advanced no farther, but led his companions back again. Phileas Fogg and Sir Francis Cromarty also saw nothing could be attempted in that direction. They stopped and engaged in a whispered colloquy. "It's only 8 now," said the brigadier, "and these guards may also go to sleep." "It is not impossible," returned the Parsee. They lay down at the foot of a tree and waited. The time seemed long. The guide ever and anon left them to take an observation on the edge of the wood, but the guards watched steadily by the glare of the torches, and a dim light crept through the windows of the pagoda. They waited till midnight, but no change took place among the guards, and it became apparent that their yielding to sleep could not be counted on. The other plan must be carried out. An opening in the walls of the pagoda must be made. It remained to ascertain whether the priests were watching by the side of their victim as assiduously as were the soldiers at the door. After a last consultation, the guide announced that he was ready for the attempt, and advanced, followed by the others. They took a roundabout way so as to get at the pagoda on the rear. They reached the walls about 12:30, without having met anyone. Here there was no guard, nor were there either windows or doors. The night was dark. The moon on the wane scarcely left the horizon, and was covered with heavy clouds. The height of the trees deepened the darkness. It was not enough to reach the walls. An opening in them must be accomplished, and to attain this purpose the party only had their pocket-knives. Happily, the temple walls were built of brick and wood, which could be penetrated with little difficulty. After one brick had been taken out, the rest would yield easily. They set noiselessly to work, and the Parsee on one side and Passepartout on the other began to loosen the bricks so as to make an aperture 2 feet wide. They were getting on rapidly, when suddenly a cry was heard in the interior of the temple, followed almost instantly by other cries replying from the outside. Passepartout and the guide stopped. Had they been heard? Was the alarm being given? Common prudence urged them to retire, and they did so, followed by Phileas Fogg and Sir Francis. They again hid themselves in the wood and waited till the disturbance, whatever it might be, ceased, holding themselves ready to resume their attempt without delay. But, awkwardly enough, the guards now appeared at the rear of the temple, and there installed themselves, in readiness to prevent a surprise. It would be difficult to describe the disappointment of the party, thus interrupted in their work. They could not now reach the victim. How then could they save her? Sir Francis shook his fists. Passepartout was beside himself, and the guide gnashed his teeth with rage. The tranquil Fogg waited, without betraying any emotion. "We have nothing to do but to go away," whispered Sir Francis. "Nothing to do but go away," echoed the guide. "Stop," said Fogg. "I'm only due at Allahabad tomorrow before noon." "But what can you hope to do?" asked Sir Francis. "In a few hours it will be daylight, and—" "The chance which now seems lost may present itself at the last moment." Sir Francis would have liked to read Phileas Fogg's eyes. What was this cool Englishman thinking of? Was he planning to make a rush for the young woman at the very moment of the sacrifice and boldly snatch her from her executioners? This would be utter folly, and it was hard to admit that Fogg was such a fool. Sir Francis consented, however, to remain to the end of this terrible drama. The guide led them to the rear of the glade, where they were able to observe the sleeping groups. Meanwhile, Passepartout, who had perched himself on the lower branches of a tree, was resolving an idea which had at first struck him like a flash, and which was now firmly lodged in his brain. He had commenced by saying to himself, "What folly!" and then he had repeated, "Why not, after all? It's a chance, perhaps the only one, and with such thoughts." Thinking thus, he slipped with the suppleness of a serpent to the lowest branches, the ends of which almost bent to the ground. The hours passed, and the lighter shades now announced the approach of day, though it was not yet light. This was the moment. The slumbering multitude became animated. The tambourines sounded. Songs and cries arose. The hour of the sacrifice has come. The doors of the pagoda swung open, and a bright light escaped from its interior, in the midst of which Mr. Fogg and Sir Francis espied the victim. She seemed, having shaken off the stupor of intoxication, to be striving to escape from her executioner. Sir Francis's heart throbbed, and convulsively seizing Mr. Fogg's hand, found in it an open knife. Just at this moment the crowd began to move. The young woman had again fallen into a stupor caused by the fumes of hemp, and passed among the fakirs, who escorted her with their wild religious cries. Phileas Fogg and his companions, mingling in the rear ranks of the crowd, followed, and in 2 minutes they reached the banks of the stream, and stopped 50 paces from the pyre, upon which still lay the Rajah's corpse. In the semi-obscurity they saw the victim, quite senseless, stretched out beside her husband's body. And then a torch was brought, and the wood, heavily soaked with oil, instantly took fire. At this moment Sir Francis and the guide seized Phileas Fogg, who in an instant of mad generosity was about to rush upon the pyre. But he had quickly pushed them aside, when the whole scene suddenly changed. A cry of terror arose. The whole multitude prostrated themselves, terror-stricken, on the ground. The old Rajah was not dead, then, since he rose of a sudden, like a spectre, took up his wife in his arms, and descended from the pyre in the midst of the clouds of smoke, which only heightened his ghostly appearance. Fakirs and soldiers and priests, seized with instant terror, lay there, with their faces on the ground, not daring to lift their eyes and behold such a prodigy. The inanimate victim was borne along by the vigorous arms which supported her, and which she did not seem in the least to burden. Mr. Fogg and Sir Francis stood erect, the Parsee bowed his head, and Passepartout was, no doubt, scarcely less stupefied. The resuscitated Rajah approached Sir Francis and Mr. Fogg, and in an abrupt tone said, "Let us be off." It was Passepartout himself, who had slipped upon the pyre in the midst of the smoke, and, profiting by the still overhanging darkness, had delivered the young woman from death. It was Passepartout who, playing his part with a happy audacity, had passed through the crowd amid the general terror. A moment after, all 4 of the party had disappeared in the woods, and the elephant was bearing them away at a rapid pace. But the cries and noise, and a ball which whizzed through Phileas Fogg's hat, apprised them that the trick had been discovered. The old Rajah's body, indeed, now appeared upon the burning pyre, and the priests, recovered from their terror, perceived that an abduction had taken place. They hastened into the forest, followed by the soldiers, who fired a volley after the fugitives. But the latter rapidly increased the distance between them, and ere long found themselves beyond the reach of the bullets and arrows. Yeah. Whew. That was, that was a pretty big plan. I thought, I thought Passepartout was going to hop on the elephant and just like go charging, just go rampaging through. I thought that seemed the most logical thing to do. But yeah, there we go. Passepartout saves the day. Very nice. It's a very nice. But I already got one. Alrighty. Bum bum bum. Okay, 1 second here. Why? Why is that like that? Let's close. Let's try opening that again. 1 second. Passepartout to le rescue. Or something like it. It is, yeah. Man. That was getting pretty action-packed there. Action-packed. Just the way it should be. Oof. Oh boy, you know, all out of coffee. It's fine. Got our little water jug right here. Good morning, Country Rebel. How you doing? Yeah, I'm just taking a quick little breather from between these chapters here. That was a pretty brisk thing. How's your day going? How's your day starting? We'll get back to our story in just a second. We're doing okay. We're doing okay. Oh yeah, that's good. That hits the spot. All right, man. Oh, 11. It's okay. We're closing in on 11:40. We got time for another chapter. Another chapter of this. These ones going pretty fast. Is evening there for you? Ah, all right. Very good. The days marching on. Dragon's Lair is here. Good morning. Good morning, Dragon's Lair. What's going on? Okay. We're plowing through this book. Good times. You can't find me on Instagram. Yeah, I have a different name on that. It is I think it's you know, I have to look. I think it's Asylum Hollywood. I need to change it. Yeah. Oh, that does remind me. Okay, you're an East Coaster there, Country Rebel. Nice, very nice. Man, I miss the East Coast. New York State. I love New York State. I love it. Okay, so if we look, yeah. So anyway, yeah, I'm trying to come up with clever ideas for my Instagram and brand new TikTok thing there. Yeah, so actually, the other question I had too is some people on TikTok seem to have really crazy special effects going on. So it seems as though you can, like special effects, which I don't seem to like be able to see as being an in-app effect. So it looks like people are maybe able to, like on their PC, do some like cool stuff. Like make a little video and then upload it somehow onto TikTok, except I don't know how that works. Let us know in Discord. Do you like to follow? Yeah, yeah, it's yeah. You know, I do need to change. I don't know what to change it to. I mean, because like, oh boy, my branding is like all over the place. I guess Carrington's such a common name. I guess all like the basics of like on TikTok, Carrington TV. Someone took that already. Even my full name, Stephen J. Carrington. Someone's already got that. And the same thing over on Twitch as well. I've like there's someone who's just camping Carrington TV over there. They don't log in, nothing like that. I can't grab it. They're just sitting on it. So up on TikTok I had to go with like Carrington's voice. I mean, even the Carrington VO that was taken. It was SJ Carrington. Yeah, it just goes so fast. So yeah, I had to go with Carrington's voice, which is just it's all over the place. It's okay though. It's okay. Book, yeah. Well, that's what I'm trying not to be so specific as that. I mean, because as a I mean, because I do more than that as a entertainer. Yeah. So yeah, I don't want to limit it too much like that. Although, yeah, I don't know. I need to get refocused on that. I do need to get refocused. But anyway, I think. But yeah, actually, I'm going to look up a couple of tutorials on TikTok as well. Just like. I'm sure. Well. And also the duration things. Oh, by the way, Mix's TikTok account, it's actually pretty interesting the way they've got it laid out. Now, they need a wider variety of material on it, but the way their layout is for their videos, it's actually pretty cool. It's pretty cool. It's got so like the top 2/3 of it is action on the screen, and the lower third of it, they actually take like they do a zoom in on the streamer's face, and they move it over there. You should check it out. It's pretty clever the way they did it. I think it looks pretty good. That's Mix's TikTok. Yeah, I wish the rest of their social media was as savvy as that. Let's see where we at. Oh, interview with Margaret Atwood. Huh, right. Okay, let's I guess let's get on with it, I guess. Right. Is that one yeah. All right. Okay, okay. We've got time, probably got time for one more chapter. Maybe a little short story afterwards too, but we'll see, Chapter 14, in which Phileas Fogg descends the whole length of the beautiful valley of the Ganges without ever thinking of seeing it. The rash exploit had been accomplished, and for an hour Passepartout laughed gaily at his success. Sir Francis pressed the worthy fellow's hand, and his master said, "Well done," which from him was a high commendation, to which Passepartout replied that all the credit of the affair belonged to Mr. Fogg. As for him, he had only been struck with a queer idea, and he laughed to think that for a few moments he, Passepartout, the ex-gymnast, ex-sergeant fireman, had been the spouse of a charming woman, a venerable embalmed Rajah. As for the young Indian woman, she had been unconscious throughout of what was passing, and now, wrapped up in a traveling blanket, was reposing in one of the howdahs. The elephant, thanks to the skillful guidance of the Parsee, was advancing rapidly through the still darksome forest, and an hour after leaving the pagoda had crossed a vast plain. They made a halt at 7 o'clock, the young woman being still in a state of complete prostration. The guide made her drink a little brandy and water, but the drowsiness which stupefied her could not yet be shaken off. Sir Francis, who was familiar with the effects of the intoxication produced by the fumes of hemp, I bet he was, reassured his companions on her account. But he was more disturbed at the prospect of her future fate. He told Phileas Fogg that, should Aouda remain in India, she would inevitably fall again into the hands of her executioners. These fanatics were scattered throughout the country, and would, despite the English police, recover their victim at Madras, Bombay, or Calcutta. She would only be safe by quitting India forever. Good morning, Metal Guru. Good morning. How you doing? Phileas Fogg replied that he would reflect upon the matter. The station at Allahabad was reached about 10 o'clock, and the interrupted line of railway being resumed would enable them to reach Calcutta in less than 24 hours. Phileas Fogg would thus be able to arrive in time to take the steamer which left Calcutta the next day, October 25th, at noon, for Hong Kong. The young woman was placed in one of the waiting rooms of the station, while Passepartout was charged with purchasing for her various articles of toilet, a dress, shawl, and some furs, for which his master gave him unlimited credit. Passepartout started off forthwith, and found himself in the streets of Allahabad, that is, the City of God, one of the most venerated in India, being built at the junction of the two sacred rivers Ganges and Jumna, the waters of which attract pilgrims from every part of the peninsula. The Ganges, according to the legends of Ramayana, rises in heaven, whence, owing to Brahma's agency, it descends to the earth. Yeah, it's a great day. It's a Tuesday. It's a great day, Metal Guru. Wow. Rose Morales is, into the big bucks. There we go. This Passepartout's unlimited credit, I guess. Good morning, Marcy. And Drissa Hart's hooking us up with a host, too. Wow. All right. Very nice. Very nice. Oh, let's continue. Passepartout made it a point, as he made his purchases, to take a good look at the city. It was formerly defended by a noble fort, which has since become a state prison. Its commerce has dwindled away, and Passepartout in vain looked about him for such a bazaar as he used to frequent in Regent Street. At last he came upon an elderly, crusty Jew who sold second-hand articles, and from whom he purchased a dress of Scotch stuff, a large mantle, and a fine otterskin pelisse, for which he did not hesitate to pay £75. He then returned triumphantly to the station. Yeah. What's Drissa Hart up to this morning? What's everyone up to? What's the plans for the day? What's everyone doing to make Tuesday the best day of the week? The influence to which the priests of Pelagie had subjected Aouda began gradually to yield, and she became more herself, so that her fine eyes resumed all their soft Indian expression. When the poet King Ukaf Udal celebrates the charms of the queen of Amenagara, he speaks thus. Her shining tresses, divided in two parts, encircle the harmonious contour of her white and delicate cheeks, brilliant in their glow and freshness. Her ebony brows have the form and charm of the bow of Karma, the god of love, and beneath her long silken lashes the purest reflections and a celestial light swim, as in the sacred lakes of Himalaya, in the black pupils of her great clear eyes. Her teeth, fine, equal, and white, glitter between her smiling lips like dewdrops in a passion flower's half-enveloped breast. Her delicately formed ears, her vermilion hands, her little feet, curved and tender as the lotus bud, glitter with the brilliancy of the loveliest pearls of Ceylon, the most dazzling diamonds of Golconda. Her narrow and supple waist, which a hand may clasp around, sets forth the outline of her rounded figure, and the beauty of her bosom, where youth in its flower displays the wealth of its treasures. And beneath the silken folds of her tunic she seems to have been modelled in pure silver by the godlike hand of Vikvarkarma. She seems to have been modelled in pure silver by the godlike hand of Vikvarkarma, the immortal sculptor. It is enough to say, without applying this poetical rhapsody to Aouda, that she was a charming woman, in all the European acceptation of the phrase. She spoke English with great purity, and the guide had not exaggerated in saying that the young Parsee had been transformed by her bringing up. All righty. Whew. Kate's eventually off to bed. You get some sleep before work. Yeah, do that. You should do that. Drawing withdrawal. Hitting hard. Okay. So you had to quit drawing for a bit there? I hope it's not something like a little carpal tunnel or something like that. That would not be good. All right. Drawing withdrawal. The train was about to start from Allahabad, and Mr. Fogg proceeded to pay the guide the price agreed upon for his service, and not a farthing more, which astonished Passepartout, who remembered all that his master owed to the guide's devotion. He had, indeed, risked his life in the adventure at Pelagie, and if he should be caught afterwards by the Indians, he would with difficulty escape their vengeance. Kiuni, also, as the elephant, must be disposed of. What should be done with the elephant, which had been so dearly purchased? Phileas Fogg had already determined this question. Oh, a new house. Oh, yeah, that'll take up a lot of time. Yeah, it will. Parsee, he said to the guide, you have been serviceable and devoted. I have paid you for your service, but not for your devotion. Would you like to have this elephant? He is yours. The guide's eyes glistened. Your honor is giving me a fortune, cried he. "Take him, guide," returned Mr. Fogg, "and I shall still be your debtor." "Good!" exclaimed Passepartout. "Take him, friend. Kiyuni is a brave and faithful beast." And going up to the elephant, he gave him several lumps of sugar, saying, "Here, Kiyuni, here." The elephant grunted out his satisfaction, and clasping Passepartout around the waist with his trunk, lifted him as high as his head. Passepartout, not in the least alarmed, caressed the animal, which replaced him gently on the ground. Soon after, Phileas Fogg, Sir Francis Cromarty, and Passepartout, installed in a carriage with Aouda, who had the best seat, were whirling at full speed toward Benares. It was a run of 80 miles, and was accomplished in 2 hours. During the journey, the young woman fully recovered her senses. What was her astonishment to find herself in this carriage, on this railway, dressed in European habiliments, and with travellers who were quite strangers to her. Her companions first set about fully reviving her with a little liquor, and then Sir Francis narrated to her what had passed, dwelling upon the courage with which Phileas Fogg had not hesitated to risk his life to save her, and recounting the happy sequel of the venture, the result of Passepartout's rash idea. Mr. Fogg said nothing, while Passepartout, abashed, kept repeating that it wasn't worth telling. Yeah. What's up there, Matty? Where do I find these books that I can read on stream? You want to start narrating? Yeah, well, yeah, you can find them from any online archive, legit ones. Gutenberg.org is pretty good. A lot of these, Internet Archive.org is another one. For convenience, you can grab them from Amazon. Though you got to be careful. The public domain stuff, yeah, you can grab some stuff from Amazon. Although you got to be careful that they don't charge you for them. Sometimes they do. Never pay for public domain material. In digital form, that is. Obviously, if you're going to pick up an actual book, an actual printed physical thing, those things cost money. Yeah. Gutenberg.org. Right. All right, I'll let someone else repeat all that, because I got to get on with it. Soon after, Phileas Fogg... it wasn't worth telling. Aouda pathetically thanked her deliverers, rather with tears than words. Her fine eyes interpreted her gratitude better than her lips. Then, as her thoughts strayed back to the scene of the sacrifice and recalled the dangers which still menaced her, she shuddered with terror. Phileas Fogg understood what was passing in Aouda's mind, and offered, in order to reassure her, to escort her to Hong Kong, where she might remain safely until the affair was hushed up, an offer which she eagerly and gratefully accepted. She had, it seems, a Parsi relation, who was one of the principal merchants of Hong Kong, which is wholly an English city, though on an island on the Chinese coast. It's no longer the case. 1997, Britain had to hand it back to China. You might have read about it in the news recently, too. At 12:30, the train stopped at Benares. The Brahmin legends assert that this city is built on the site of the ancient Kasi, which, like Mahomet's tomb, was once suspended between heaven and earth, though the Benares of today, which the Orientalists call the Athens of India, stands quite unpoetically on the solid earth. Passepartout caught glimpses of its brick houses and clay huts, giving an aspect of desolation to the place, as the train entered it. Benares was Sir Francis Cromarty's destination, the troops he was rejoining being encamped some miles northward of the city. He bade adieu to Phileas Fogg, wishing him all success and expressing the hope that he would come that way again, in a less original but more profitable fashion. Mr. Fogg lightly pressed him by the hand. The parting of Aouda, who did not forget what she owed to Sir Francis, betrayed more warmth, and as for Passepartout, he received a hearty shake of the hand from the gallant general. The railway, on leaving Benares, passed for a while along the valley of the Ganges. Through the windows of their carriage, the travelers had glimpses of the diversified landscape of Bihar, with its mountains clothed in verdure, its fields of barley, wheat and corn, its jungles peopled with green alligators, its neat villages, and its still thickly leaved forests. Elephants were bathing in the waters of the sacred river, and groups of Indians, despite the advanced season and chilly air, were performing solemnly their pious ablutions. These were fervent Brahmins, the bitterest foes of Buddhism, their deities being Vishnu, the solar god, Shiva, the divine impersonation of natural forces, and Brahma, the supreme ruler of priests and legislators. What would these divinities think of India, anglicized as it is today, with steamers whistling and scudding along the Ganges, frightening the gulls which float upon its surface, the turtles swarming along its banks, and the faithful dwelling upon its borders? The panorama passed before their eyes like a flash, save when the steam concealed it fitfully from the view. The travelers could scarcely discern the fort of Chupini, 20 miles southwestward from Benares, the ancient stronghold of the Rajas of Bihar, or Gazipur and its famous rosewater factories, or the tomb of Lord Cornwallis, rising on the left bank of the Ganges, the fortified town of Buxar or Patna, a large manufacturing and trading place, where is held the principal opium market of India, or Mongir, a northern European town, for it is as English as Manchester or Birmingham, with its iron foundries, edge-tool factories, and high chimneys puffing clouds of black smoke heavenward. Night came on. The train passed on at full speed, in the midst of the roaring of the tigers, bears, and wolves, which fled before the locomotive, and the marvels of Bengal, Golconda, ruined Gur, Murshidabad, the ancient capital, Burdwan, Hooghly, and the French town of Chandanagur, where Passepartout would have been proud to see his country's flag flying, were hidden from their view in the darkness. That was a long one. Calcutta was reached at 7 in the morning, and the packet left for Hong Kong at noon, so that Phileas Fogg had 5 hours before him. According to his journal, he was due at Calcutta on the 25th of October, and that was the exact date of his actual arrival. He was therefore neither behindhand nor ahead of time. The 2 days gained between London and Bombay had been lost, as has been seen, in the journey across India. But it is not to be supposed that Phileas Fogg regretted them. Oh, that was a short chapter. Okay, he made it to, did they actually leave on the boat? And Calcutta was reached and the packet left for Hong Kong at noon. Alright. He was due on the 25th, and that was the exact day. Okay, he was therefore neither. The 2 days game between London and Bombay had been lost. Okay. It is, okay, so it's, okay. Chapter 15. We'll continue with this tomorrow. Okay, in which the bag of banknotes disgorges some thousands of pounds more. Okay, so they're arriving in Calcutta. They're arriving at Calcutta, where they're going to take a steamer across to Hong Kong. All right, man. We should put a map in Discord or something like that. All right, there we go. Oh, my goodness. Okay, I'm going to change scenes here real fast. I'm going to pick up a little short story just to end the day with. Yeah. So, let's get the... What are we going to grab? You know, I'm just going to do an oldie but a goodie. An oldie but a goodie. Okay. I'm sure a lot of you all may have heard this one before. I'm working on it though. The White Ship by... this will be H.P. Lovecraft. We're going to end on this little piece of Lovecraft. Here we go. The White Ship. Alrighty. So let's see. Let's just taking a quick peek at chat here real fast. So we had... let's see, where is... Oh, did we lose Maddie? I think we lost Maddie. All right, okay. I was going to go over everything there. Again, apparently they missed everything I said because the mixer froze when I was giving out that very, very important information that they wanted to know about. And now they're gone. All right. Now I had time to go over it. They're not here. All right. That's fine. All right. I guess that information wasn't that important after all. I guess. Shadowtronics is asleep again. Kate, you go to bed. Go get some Z's. The train is so... Oh, you live... your trains are loud. You remember... Kate's like, make me, LOL. I'm like, I don't make monkeys, I just train them. All right, that's some good old Pee Wee Herman. All right. Okay. All right. You don't remember that bit from Pee Wee's Big Adventure? I don't know, it's funny. That movie was ridiculously funny. Yeah. Make you. I don't make monkeys, I just train them. All right. Okay, where are we at? Lady Death lives 50 yards from a train tracks. Good lord. That would be loud. It's still good. It says it's still good. All right. Okay, so we're just going to end on a bit of a short story here. Just taking a bit of a breather. Just 1 second. And it'll be a change. Yeah. So anyway, I have read this one before. I know some of you have heard this one before as well. It'll be okay. We will get through it. We will get through it. It's pretty good. It is pretty good. Oh, that's interesting. That's interesting. All right. You've been living here the last... You're used to it, 16 years. Remember that movie, My Cousin Vinny? Where it is about the two young kids who are arrested for murder, and they bring in... And one of them has an uncle, Vinny, that they bring in to be their lawyer. And Uncle Vinny's staying at that little motel with the train going by. Yeah, it's a really funny movie. I haven't seen it. I saw it when it first came out, but I watched it a couple of times on video when it first came out on video too. But man, I haven't seen it in I don't know how long. It was such a funny movie. But yeah, every night that train just went right on by. It was good. Okay, let's all right. Okay. Anyway, so I had that information again for Maddie, but I guess Maddie is okay. I don't know. Who knows? I don't know what's going on. I don't know. Okay. But anyway, here we go. We got one more story. We're gonna end it. Again, we'll continue with Around the World in 80 Days tomorrow. But for right now, is it good? Oh yeah, it's very funny. Very funny. It's like all kinds of like mistaken identity stuff going on, and yeah, it's good. Yeah, Jules Verne is very good, very good. But anyway, okay, so we got one more story to read, and then we will get on. Okay, this is a little short story here. What's up there, crack man? What's crack-a-lackin'? How you doing? What's the good word with the crack? I don't know. Okay, let's get on with our story. This is our okay, and I have read this one before, so I know some of you are going to know this one. That's okay though. I just want to get a little better at this one. But and we'll continue with part 3 of Around the World in 80 Days tomorrow. Yeah, 10 a.m. Pacific, 1 p.m. Eastern is when we start, Monday through Thursday. Very rocky, says Crackman. All right, been good. Been keeping pretty good. We're just going to wind down our day with a short story. We're just kicking it off right now. One of my favorites, The White Ship by H.P. Lovecraft. I am Basil Alton, keeper of the North Point light that my father and grandfather kept before me. Far from the shore stands the grey lighthouse, above sunken, slimy rocks that are seen when the tide is low, but unseen when the tide is high. Past that beacon for a century have swept the majestic barks of the 7 seas. In the days of my grandfather there were many, in the days of my father not so many. And now there are so few that I sometimes feel strangely alone, as though I were the last man on our planet. From far shores came those white-sailed argosies of old. From far eastern shores, where warm suns shine and sweet odors linger about strange gardens and gay temples. The old captains of the sea came often to my grandfather and told him of these things, which in turn he told to my father, and my father told to me in the long autumn evenings when the wind howled eerily from the east. And I have read more of these things, and of many things besides, in the books men gave me when I was young and filled with wonder. Hey, Brady boy. But more wonderful than the lore of old men and the lore of books is the secret lore of the ocean. Blue, green, gray, white, or black, smooth, ruffled, or mountainous, that ocean is not silent. All my days have I watched it and listened to it, and I know it well. At first it told to me only the plain little tales of calm beaches and near ports, but with the years it grew more friendly and spoke of other things, of things more strange and more distant in space and in time. Sometimes at twilight the grey vapors of the horizon have parted to grant me glimpses of the ways beyond. And sometimes at night the deep waters of the sea have grown clear and phosphorescent to grant me glimpses of the ways beneath. And these glimpses have often been of the ways that were and the ways that might be, as of the ways that are. For ocean is more ancient than the mountains, and freighted with the memories and the dreams of time. Out of the south it was that the white ship used to come, when the moon was full and high in the heavens. Out of the south it would glide very smoothly and silently over the sea. And whether the sea was rough or calm, and whether the wind was friendly or adverse, it would always glide smoothly and silently, its sails distant, and its long, strange tiers of oars moving rhythmically. One night I espied upon the deck a man, bearded and robed, and he seemed to beckon me to embark for fair, unknown shores. Many times afterward I saw him under the full moon, and ever did he beckon me. Good morning, Mr. Quinn. Very brightly did the moon shine on the night I answered the call, and I walked out over the waters to the white ship on a bridge of moonbeams. The man who had beckoned now spoke a welcome to me, in a soft language I seemed to know well, and the hours were filled with soft songs of the oarsmen, as we glided away into a mysterious south, golden with the glow of that full, mellow moon. And when the day dawned, rosy and effulgent, I beheld the green shore of far lands, bright and beautiful, and to me unknown. Up from the sea rose lordly terraces of verdure, tree-studded, and showing here and there the gleaming white roofs and colonnades of strange temples. As we drew nearer the green shore, the bearded man told me of that land, the land of Zar, where dwell all the dreams and thoughts of beauty that come to men once, and then are forgotten. And when I looked upon the terraces again, I saw that what he said was true, for among the sights before me were many things I had once seen through the mists beyond the horizon, and in the phosphorescent depths of ocean. There, too, were forms and fantasies more splendid than any I had ever known, the visions of young poets who died in want before the world could learn of what they had seen and dreamed. But we did not set foot upon the sloping meadows of Zar, for it is told that he who treads them may never more return to his native shore. As the white ship sailed silently away from the templed terraces of Zar, we beheld on the distant horizon ahead the spires of a mighty city, and the bearded man said to me, "This is Thalarion, the city of 1,000 wonders, wherein reside all those mysteries that man has striven in vain to fathom." And I looked again, at closer range, and saw that the city was greater than any city I had known or dreamed of before. Into the sky the spires of its temples reached, so that no man might behold their peaks, and far back beyond the horizon stretched the grim grey walls, over which one might spy only a few roofs, weird and ominous, yet adorned with rich friezes and alluring sculptures. I yearned mightily to enter this fascinating yet repellent city, and besought the bearded man to land me at the stone pier by the huge carven gate Acariel. But he gently denied my wish, saying, "Into Thalarion, the city of 1,000 wonders, many have passed, but none returned. Therein walk only demons and mad things that are no longer men, and the streets are white with the unburied bones of those who have looked upon the Eidolon Lethe that reigns over the city." So the white ship sailed on past the walls of Thalarion, and followed for many days a southward flying bird, whose glossy plumage matched the sky out of which it had appeared. Then came we to a pleasant coast, gay with blossoms of every hue, where as far inland as we could see basked lovely groves and radiant arbors beneath the meridian sun. From bowers beyond our view came bursts of song and snatches of lyric harmony, interspersed with faint laughter so delicious that I urged the rowers onward in my eagerness to reach the scene. And the bearded man spoke no word, but watched me as we approached the lily-lined shore. Suddenly, a wind blowing from over the flowery meadows and leafy woods brought a scent at which I trembled. The wind grew stronger, and the air was filled with the lethal, charnel odor of plague-stricken towns and uncovered cemeteries. And as we sailed madly away from that damnable coast, the bearded man spoke at last, saying, "This is Zura, the land of pleasures unattained." So once more the white ship followed the bird of heaven, over warm, blessed seas, fanned by caressing, aromatic breezes. Day after day and night after night did we sail, and when the moon was full we would listen to soft songs of the oarsmen, sweet as on that distant night when we sailed away from my far native land. And it was by moonlight that we anchored at last in the harbor of Sona Nile, which is guarded by twin headlands of crystal that rise from the sea and meet in a resplendent arch. This is the land of fancy, and we walked to the verdant shore upon a golden bridge of moonbeams. In the land of Sona Nile there is neither time nor space, neither suffering nor death, and there I dwelt for many aeons. Green are the groves and pastures, bright and fragrant the flowers, blue and musical the streams, clear and cool the fountains, and stately and gorgeous the temples, castles, and cities of Sona Nile. Of that land there is no bound, for beyond each vista of beauty rises another more beautiful. Over the countryside and amidst the splendor of cities rove at will the happy folk, of whom all are gifted with unmarred grace and unalloyed happiness. For the aeons that I dwelt there, I wandered blissfully through gardens where quaint pagodas peep from pleasing clumps of bushes, and where the white walks are bordered with delicate blossoms. I climbed gentle hills from whose summits I could see entrancing panoramas of loveliness, with steepled towns nestling in verdant valleys, and with the golden domes of gigantic cities glittering on the infinitely distant horizon. And I viewed by moonlight the sparkling sea, the crystal headlands, and the placid harbor wherein lay anchored the white ship. It was against the full moon one night, in the immemorial year of Thab, that I saw outlined the beckoning form of the celestial bird, and felt the first stirrings of unrest. Then I spoke with the bearded man, and told him of my new yearnings to depart for remote Cathuria, which no man hath seen, but which all believe to lie beyond the basalt pillars of the west. It is the land of hope, and in it shine the perfect ideals of all that we know elsewhere. Or at least so men relate. But the bearded man said to me, "Beware of those perilous seas wherein men say Cathuria lies. In Sona Nile there is no pain nor death, but who can tell what lies beyond the basalt pillars of the west?" Natheless, at the next full moon, I boarded the white ship, and with the reluctant bearded man left the happy harbor for untraveled seas. And the bird of heaven flew before, and led us toward the basalt pillars of the west. But this time the oarsmen sang no soft songs under the full moon. In my mind I would often picture the unknown land of Cathuria, with its splendid groves and palaces, and would wonder what new delights there awaited me. Cathuria, I would say to myself, is the abode of gods and the land of unnumbered cities of gold. Its forests are of aloe and sandalwood, even as the fragrant groves of Camorin. And among the trees flutter gay birds sweet with song. On the green and flowery mountains of Cathuria stand temples of pink marble, rich with carven and painted glories, and having in their courtyards cool fountains of silver, where purl with ravishing music the scented waters that come from the grotto-born river Nag. And the cities of Cathuria are cinctured with golden walls, and their pavements also are of gold. In the gardens of these cities are strange orchids and perfumed lakes whose beds are of coral and amber. At night the streets and the gardens are lit with gay lanthorns fashioned from the three-colored shell of the tortoise, and here resound the soft notes of the singer and the lutenist. And the houses of the cities of Cathuria are all palaces, each built over a fragrant canal bearing the waters of the sacred Nag. Of marble and porphyry are the houses, and roofed with glittering gold that reflects the rays of the sun, and enhances the splendor of the cities as blissful gods view them from the distant peaks. Fairest of all is the palace of the great monarch Dorieb, whom some say to be a demigod, and others a god. High is the palace of Dorieb, and many are the turrets of marble upon its walls. In its wide halls many multitudes assemble, and here hang the trophies of the ages. And the roof is of pure gold, set upon tall pillars of ruby and azure, and having such carven figures of gods and heroes that he who looks up to those heights seems to gaze upon the living Olympus. And the floor of the palace is of glass, under which flow the cunningly lighted waters of the Nag, gay with gaudy fish not known beyond the bounds of lovely Cathuria. Thus would I speak to myself of Cathuria. But ever would the bearded man warn me to turn back to the happy shores of Sona Nile. For Sona Nile is known of men, while none hath ever beheld Cathuria. And on the 31st day that we followed the bird, we beheld the basalt pillars of the west. Shrouded in mist they were, so that no man might peer beyond them, or see their summits, which indeed some say reach even to the heavens. And the bearded man again implored me to turn back, but I heeded him not. For from the mists beyond the basalt pillars I fancied there came the notes of singer and lutenist, sweeter than the sweetest songs of Sona Nile, and sounding mine own praises, the praises of me, who had voyaged far under the full moon, and dwelt in the land of fancy. So to the sound of melody the white ship sailed into the mist betwixt the basalt pillars of the west. And when the music ceased, and the mist lifted, we beheld not the land of Cathuria, but a swift-rushing, resistless sea, over which our helpless bark was borne toward some unknown goal. Soon to our ears came the distant thunder of falling waters, and to our eyes appeared on the far horizon ahead the titanic spray of a monstrous cataract, wherein the oceans of the world drop down to abysmal nothingness. Then did the bearded man say to me, with tears on his cheek, "We have rejected the beautiful land of Sona Nile, which we may never behold again. The gods are greater than men, and they have conquered." And I closed my eyes before the crash that I knew would come, shutting out the sight of the celestial bird which flapped its mocking blue wings over the brink of the torrent. Out of that crash came darkness, and I heard the shrieking of men, and of things which were not men. From the east, tempestuous winds arose, and chilled me as I crouched on the slab of damp stone which had risen beneath my feet. Then, as I heard another crash, I opened my eyes, and beheld myself upon the platform of that lighthouse from whence I had sailed so many aeons ago. In the darkness below there loomed the vast, blurred outlines of a vessel breaking up on the cruel rocks, and as I glanced out over the waste, I saw that the light had failed for the first time since my grandfather had assumed its care. And in the later watches of the night, when I went within the tower, I saw on the wall a calendar which still remained as when I had left it at the hour I sailed away. With the dawn, I descended the tower and looked for wreckage upon the rocks. But what I found was only this: a strange dead bird whose hue was as of the azure sky, and a single shattered spar of a whiteness greater than that of the wave-tips or of the mountain snow. And thereafter, the ocean told me its secrets no more. And though many times since has the moon shone full and high in the heavens, the white ship from the south came never again. Yeah. There we go. There we go. Well, I hope you enjoyed today's book reading. Yeah, we made some pretty good tracks into. Oh, that wasn't that sad, Tillable Cat. It's a little food for thought, though. The pretty good tracks. We're 36% into Around the World in 80 Days. We'll continue with that tomorrow, 10 a.m. Pacific, 1 p.m. Eastern. It should be good. Should be a lot of fun. And let's see. Yeah, and obviously tonight we'll have some gaming going on. It's the end. Oh, that's why you're sad. The end of book club. Yes. Yeah, unfortunately, I got some stuff to do, though. Oh boy. I have some stuff to do. So we'll see you back tomorrow, 10 a.m. Pacific, 1 p.m. Eastern for book club. Thank you for spending time with us. It's been a good run. Gaming tonight about 7 p.m. Pacific. I don't know what we're playing yet. Anyway, let me take a look at scheduled raids. What's going on there? What do we got? Today's Tuesday, right? 6:37. What's this blue one? Gone with the Wind and Rain. That might be worth popping in for, and then switching over to something else. Gone with the Wind and Rain. Concert at 6:30, 7 p.m. for the actual fight. Hopefully they're not messing up their times tonight. But that's it. Yeah, thank you for spending time with me here. Thank you for the embers today. Thank you. I like those, indeed I do. Thank you for the new follows. And but yeah, thank you for just tuning in. We had a good time. We had a good time with that. I'll see you all later. There's what? Who is that? What movie is that from? I don't know. He's going to join us for Phantasy Star. Okay. Yeah, we're not going to do a ton of it. We're just going to get that little raid done. Do the Gone with the Wind and Rain. I think I need that for a bingo card. We'll see. We'll see. And daily, and then I'll be switching over to something else. Yeah, because boy, there's a lot of stuff I need to work my way through. All right, but there we go. That is it. See you later. I'm going to take a quick look into creative. Who can we pass this over to? That is let's see. Oh, that's good. Do you guys know Kimbo Weenie? Oh, you know what? I don't think Kimbo Weenie is. No, she's not. She's not family friendly. Who's Tom? Tom can't draw. Don't know if they're being facetious or not. Yeah, let's go take a look. I don't know. Tom can't draw. All right. Just pop in there, see what's going on. Let me just make sure it's where we at? Is up there, Mike's Dentures? Mike's Dentures, we're doing good, man. How are you doing? And Velociraptor's here as well. All right, Tom can't draw. I don't know. We'll give it a crack. See what's going to happen here. But day's just ending. For those just arriving, I'm out of here. I'm going to throw you over to Tom Can't Draw. Never heard of this dude before. Maybe he's cool, maybe he sucks. I don't know. We're going to find out together. He's going to pop on in there. I'll catch you later tonight. I do got to go, though. Catch you guys later.